What's up guys, Josh aka SavageHydraa here, and welcome to episode 1 of my how-to series, hoping to give you guys everything you need to know about starting to construct and use your own competitive Pokemon teams. The first episode here is on breeding because it's pretty much the baseline of where you need to start. You're going to want to start refining your natures, your abilities, your egg moves and your IVs onto single level 1 mons, so you can then start training them up, leveling them ready for competitive use. First of all, there's a few essential items that you're going to need for this. The first of which is an Everstone, and basically what this means is that the parent that holds an Everstone and goes into the daycare will pass on its nature to all of its offspring. So if you give a modest Pokemon the Everstone, put it in the daycare for breeding, all of the eggs will hatch modest that it produces. That goes for the same for any nature. Everstones are pretty easy to come by. You can find one in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire using the dowsing machine in Granite Cave on Juford Town, the island that Juford Town is on. And I believe you're given one somewhere in X and Y, but you can also find them as a wild hold item on things like Boldor and Roggenrola. So they're pretty readily available. The next things you need are some power items, and there's one for each of the stats: the weight for HP, the bracer for attack, the belt for defense, the lens for special attack, band is for special defense, and the anchor is for speed. These guarantee that a particular individual value, or IV, is inherited from the parent holding the item. So if a parent has a maxed HP IV of 31, you want to give it the power weight and then breed it, and it will make sure that that 31 IV is passed on to any offspring. These items are readily available from both Battle Maisons in X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire for 16 battle points apiece, so you just need to do a bit of grinding in the Battle Maison to get all of these. I'd recommend to get multiples of each, not for breeding but for EV training, which I'll cover in the next video. I'll come on to that at another time. The Destiny Knot is the last item you're going to need. This is really useful for breeding because it ups the number of inherited IVs from the parents from 3 to 5. Normally when you have a breeding pair in the daycare, it will randomly select for each egg the 3 IVs that it will pass on. So that could be any mix from the 6 stats, and then it will select which parent gives each stat individually, so it's all kind of mutually exclusive in a way. And then those 3 stats will be inherited, and then the rest will be left at random. This means that only one of them is left to truly random, while 5 are inherited, meaning you have a lot more, I won't say control because it's not really control, but it's a lot less random. There's a lot less variability on which stats your Pokemon are going to be hatching with. So this is available, I believe you're given it by someone in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and in X and Y you're given it. And then in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire you need to battle the young couple on the shipwreck. I believe it's New Morville it's called in the new games. And they have a chance of giving you the Destiny Knot at the end of each battle that you have with them, and if you need to, you can use the nav to check when they're available to battle again, and then go back and try again if you don't get it the first time or the second, or how many times you need to get to actually get it off of them. So one of the most important things you want to know is where to actually go to do your breeding. In X and Y there's only one daycare, and it's on Route 8, which is to the west of Camphrier Town. But before Zubat Roost, it's just after where you have the Snorlax event. In this place, you're going to want to be doing a batch process because you're going to have to be travelling around a lot. So you want to basically put your parents in the daycare, have a flyer / flame body user in your party, get 4 eggs, and then take a parent out, and then fly to Lumio's and cycle around Lumio's tower, because that's an endless loop that you can just cycle around by just holding left or right. And eventually, after going round and round, your eggs will hatch. You can check which ones are the best ones by going to the IV check-ins and stuff, and then choose which ones you want to put back in the daycare to start producing more eggs. So it's more of a batch process rather than something you can just keep going and going. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, this process is a lot more streamlined. You've got a daycare in the Battle Resort, which is available to you after the post-game events of the Delta episode. And this one is actually on an infinite loop rather than you having to travel from the daycare to the infinite loop. This way you can just put your parents into the daycare there, start riding around the island and collect and hatch your eggs in a continuous process at the same time. So it really makes this whole process a lot easier because you can just do it all in one place just as you're cycling around and around that island. Flame body is really useful here because flame body means that each of your steps when hatching eggs, which normally equal 1, count for 2, which means that you basically halve your hatching time for your eggs. And at the same time, hatching O powers do a similar thing, so they're really useful as well to use for when you're hatching your eggs. As for egg moves, which is the first really complex thing that we're going to go into in this video, they're basically moves that a Pokemon normally would not learn by level up or TM, or maybe even the tutors. So, for example, I'll have an example here in a second, but it's basically a way of passing on unusual or rare moves to your Pokemon that may be really good for competitive use. A few basics about the inheritance in eggs is that eggs will always be of the same species as the female parent. Which means that males are the ones that pass on egg moves when the breeding pair are from different species, because you can't really, like, if you're going to hatch eggs of something, it's the mother that produces the eggs, and then the male parent is passing on egg moves that may not be available to it normally and from a different species. In same species breeding, so you want to in a process there where you're compiling your egg moves from different individuals of the same species, both parents' egg moves are passed down, so you can have different chains of your egg moves and then bring them together at a later stage. Ditto are also functionally female whenever they're part of a breeding pair, so whether you've got a male or a female breeding with a Ditto, egg moves are always passed down that way, so you don't need to worry about having a male to give with your Ditto so that the egg moves are passed down. You can just put anyone in with a Ditto and the egg moves will be held. So for an example of something that I actually did a small breeding project on recently, it was adding extra sensory and sucker punch onto Zorua. So the stages in this were as follows. First up was getting a female Zorua, because I want to be producing Zorua eggs, so I need a female, and I went and got a male Vulpix with extra sensory. Bred those together and got a level 1 Zorua with extra sensory. For example's sake, I'm going to say this one was male. It doesn't have to be male, it can be female, it doesn't really matter, but that I'll come on to in a sec. And for the second stage, I went with another female Zorua and a male Poochyena with Sucker Punch. So then I could pass on Sucker Punch to a Zorua, and then, for example's sake, again, this one's female. The two genders on these offspring with the egg moves are interchangeable, just as there's one of each, so that they are actually breedable together, because obviously you can't put two females in the daycare and expect to get eggs out of it. Breeding these two together, because they're the same species, compiles the egg moves onto one individual, so you end up with a single Zorua, level 1 with extra sensory and Sucker Punch. So this is basically just the basics of how you'd go through a breeding process to get egg moves onto something. As for the method behind breeding, there's multiple stages for it all. First of all, I would say sort out your egg moves first, so they're all on one individual. That's because egg moves are pretty much the easiest thing to keep going with your breeding, because they're not removed. Even if something levels up and unlearns them, egg moves will still be passed on as long as you don't take it out of the daycare. So if you're careful about it, you can make sure these egg moves are being passed on continuously. The next stage is to check your individual values with the Ace Trainer in Kalu City Pokemon Center, which is in X and Y, that's the city where the Friend Safaris are. Or you can go to the Battle Resort Pokemon Center in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and there's also a Ace Trainer in there as well, which will tell you IVs. So basically anything that the trainer in there says is fantastic and simply can't be beat is a perfect 31 IV. So you want to use this feature, which you can go into your PC and use the marking feature to check off these shapes to keep a reminder of what IVs are maxed on any Pokemon. So for example, this one here, the only one is highlighted as the square, so I could tell that it's HP, attack, special defense, and speed IVs aren't perfect, but its defense one is, because it's attack, HP, attack, defense. So that works really nicely for keeping track of the IVs, so it prevents you from getting lost and choosing the best ones you want to use for your breeding. You want to do the same with any Ditto you have, just so you can check what IVs these Ditto actually have. I personally have a collection of Ditto, each with all of the natures that I'm ever going to be able to want to use, so I can easily like put natures on the right things and start the breeding process really easily. So that's a really useful thing to have. But otherwise, you can always go searching for things. Synchronize the ability, I believe, basically means that there's a 50% chance of the Pokemon that you encounter when you lead with a synchronized Pokemon will be of the same nature as the synchronizer. You want to grab your appropriate power items so that you're passing on the appropriate IVs for the things that are maxed on the individuals that you've got. And then you want to keep refining the IVs and passing them down and so that they start shifting over to one individual. So you want to just keep passing it down, and eventually you'll start getting them all compiling on one Pokemon. So as soon as you've got a parent and a Ditto that have all 5 or 6 desired IVs between them, that way you can start adding in the Destiny Knot and keep one power item, so you can guarantee one IV is passed on, and then the Destiny Knot can hopefully start doing the rest, and eventually you'll get a single offspring with 5 IVs on its own, or 6 if you're really lucky and get that. And that's particularly useful for any hybrid attackers. 6 IVs is never ever guaranteed, because even if you have 2 6 IV parents and you put them in the daycare, the Destiny Knot will still only guarantee that 5 are passed on, and 1 of them will still be left to random, so you've still only got a 1 in 32 chance of hatching a perfect 6 IV from 2 6 IV parents. The Everstone with another parent or Ditto will make sure you keep making sure you're still keeping hold of the Egg Moose. This is a point where you get to like put your nature back on your Pokemon, because you can't have like 3 items juggling between them. So getting the 6 IVs or 5 IVs onto something and then adding in the Everstone with the Destiny Knot still will hopefully keep you going with that. 6 IV Ditto is a massive help here if you can get hold of one from somewhere. It basically means that you can skip the whole IV refining process, chuck a Destiny Knot on the Ditto. You can then just sort out the egg moves of nature onto one individual and give it the Everstone, and then you just keep pumping out eggs and choosing the one with the most IVs that are maxed and keep going and going and going. So with this sort of method, I managed to basically, with a 6 IV Ditto, produce about 7 different Leavanny when I was breeding some Sowaddles. And over the course of maybe 3 or 4 days, but in actual play time, it probably took about 6 hours, I bred, EV'd, and leveled up to level 50 7 different Leavanny in about 6 hours. So there's loads of ways that you can like cut down the time in the production of battle ready Pokemon. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it. For something, a quick note on abilities and IVs. Abilities are passed down by parents of either gender, but of course, if you're doing things with different species, you want it to be on female that has the ability you want, because that's the one of the eggs that you're producing. So it's really just another thing to check when you're breeding down. Hidden abilities are sometimes preferred and are found in Hordes, in X and Y, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, although that's pretty much random. If you in X and Y, you can go in your friend safaris, and if you've unlocked all 3 of the Pokemon that are available in a particular friend safari, their hidden abilities then become available to you. So Trace is something that's really useful here for checking an ability by copying it of the opponent as soon as you enter battle. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, again, it's made a bit easier with the Dex nav, because you can see generally see the ability of what you're looking at before you encounter it. So you can pretty much confirm what you want to catch. It's pretty much just an extra checkbox when you're breeding to look at your freshly hatched Pokemon. So if you're looking for a particular ability, once you've hatched your eggs, you check through them all, discard any ones that don't have the right ability, and then check the IVs and stuff of the one that have the right ability, and then choose one you want to use for the next stage of the breeding. So it just adds in time really when you want to use hidden abilities and secondary abilities and stuff like that. As for IVs, if you don't have access to a 6 IV Ditto from anywhere, there are other helpful ways of getting more IVs. In X and Y, all Pokemon caught in the Friend Safari have a minimum of 2 IVs maxed at 31. They can have more, but 2 of them are guaranteed to be at 31, which is generally really useful. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the Dex nav will sometimes show a potential region with 3 stars indicating maxed out IVs. When all 3 of these stars are lit up, you know that the Pokemon has a minimum of 3 IVs maxed out. On another side note, when you're catching legendaries, every single legendary in the game now from Gen 6, so both X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they all have a minimum of 3 maxed IVs, so you can check it once you've caught it, as long as you don't save, and if it's not ideal, you can then soft reset your game, go back to catch it again, and check which 3 have been maxed this time. And obviously they can have more IVs that are actually maxed, it's just a case of keeping resetting until you get it if you want to do it like that. So that's pretty much everything that you're going to need to know for breeding and sort of legendary catching as well. This should give you everything you need to know for actually starting to go through the whole breeding process for yourself, and hopefully it can encourage you to start doing some breeding of yourself. I personally find it quite therapeutic, because it's kind of like one of those things you can just do, chill out, watch something else while you're doing it, and kind of just keep going. It's just one of those things that's kind of like, I find it, because of the methodical way about it, it's something that I just kind of enjoy doing. Some people kind of may find it a bit tedious, but it's just the way it is. So that should be everything you need to know. If you found this video useful, or think that other people will find it useful for them, if you already knew all of this, then do leave a like, because it will kind of get the video spread a little bit more, so more people can see it and more people can get use out of it. If you think there's anything I can really improve about how this series kind of goes, then do tell me in the comment section. And if there's any particular comments you found about anything particularly useful in here for you, then go for that as well in the comment section. Any feedback is welcomed. And if you want to see more of stuff like this, want to see more of these kind of tutorial and useful videos, do subscribe so then it all shows up in your sub box when it comes up. The next episode will be on EV training, so the next stage that you'll be going through after you've hatched all your level 1 Pokemon. And other than that, I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.